Princess Hana never imagined her day would end like this. The royal vessel had been functioning perfectly just hours earlier, as she navigated through Earth's atmosphere on what should have been a simple survey mission. Her people had been observing this blue planet for generations, fascinated by its diversity and the curious creatures called humans who dominated its surface. The first warning came as a subtle vibration beneath her feet. Then the control panel flashed red, emergency signals blaring through the small craft. Hana's training kicked in as she tried to stabilize the failing systems, her slender blue-tinted fingers dancing across the flickering displays. But it was too late. Navigation offline. Engine failure imminent. The ship's computer announced with eerie calm as the vessel plummeted toward the ground. Hana braced herself, clutching the royal pendant that marked her as third daughter to the Star Kingdom's ruler. The impact came with a deafening crash, throwing her against the restraints before everything went silent. When she regained consciousness, pain shot through her right leg. The ship had torn open like a cracked egg, its precious technology scattered across unfamiliar soil. Through the jagged opening, Hana could see tall trees swaying in the evening breeze. She was in some kind of forest, thankfully not in the middle of a human settlement. "Status report," she whispered, her voice shaking as she activated her wrist communicator. The device sputtered and displayed only fragmented information. The emergency beacon, her lifeline to home, showed critical damage. Night was falling quickly. Hana gathered what supplies survived the crash and pulled herself from the wreckage, wincing at the pain in her leg. She needed to hide both herself and any evidence of her ship. Humans weren't ready for contact with her kind. At least that's what all the research indicated. The cool air made her shiver as she limped deeper into the forest. Her skin's natural blue tint seemed to glow faintly in the twilight, and the marks along her arms, normally a source of pride indicating her royal lineage, now felt like dangerous beacons announcing her otherness. Finding a dense cluster of fallen branches and undergrowth, Hana created a makeshift shelter. She applied healing gel to her injured leg and tried again to activate the emergency beacon. Nothing but static responded to her efforts. "Stay calm," she told herself, fighting back tears. "Father will notice when you miss the scheduled check-in." But that wouldn't be for another 12 Earth hours. Until then, she was stranded on a planet that would see her as a monster or a threat. Images from the cultural briefings flashed through her mind, humans capturing and experimenting on anything they didn't understand. The stories of their wars and conflicts made her shudder. As full darkness descended, unfamiliar sounds filled the forest. Creatures called and moved through the underbrush. Something howled in the distance, and Hana pulled her knees to her chest, making herself as small as possible. The temperature dropped further. Her environmental suit had been damaged. In the crash, its heating elements flickering on and off unpredictably. Hana watched her breath form small clouds in the air as fear settled in her stomach like a heavy stone. This was not how royal missions were supposed to go. She had begged for this assignment, wanting to prove herself worthy of her title through more than just birthright. Her older sisters excelled at diplomacy and science, while Hana had always been drawn to exploration. Now she wondered if she'd ever see them again. A rustling sound nearby made her freeze. Something was approaching her hiding place. Hana held her breath, pressing herself against the rough bark of a fallen tree. Her hand hovered over the small defensive device at her belt, the only weapon she carried. The branches parted, and moonlight illuminated a pair of curious eyes. Not human eyes, Hana realized with a mixture of relief and new concern. This was one of Earth's four-legged companions, what humans called a dog. This one was smaller than many she'd seen in the research files, with pointed ears and a curled tail. Its fur carried warm gold and cream colors. The dog tilted its head, studying her with an intelligence that surprised Hana. It made no aggressive moves, simply watching her with what almost seemed like concern. "Go away," Hana whispered, waving her hand weakly. "Please go." The animal didn't leave. Instead, it sniffed the air, taking in her unfamiliar scent. Hana remained still, hoping it would lose interest and leave before its human companion appeared. But somewhere in the distance, a voice called out. A human voice. "Bum, where are you, girl? Bum." The dog's ears perked up at the sound, but it made no move to return to its caller. Instead, it took another step toward Hana, its nose twitching with curiosity. Panic rose in her chest. If the dog stayed, the human would follow. Discovery would mean the end of everything, not just her mission, but potentially peace between their worlds if her presence triggered human fear. As the voice grew closer, calling that name again, Bum. Hana closed her eyes and prepared for the worst. Her first mission to Earth, her great chance to prove herself, had become a disaster that might change the fate of two worlds forever. And all because of one small, curious dog that wouldn't go away. Tay never had to worry about Bum running off before. The little Shiba Inu was usually well behaved during their evening walks, content to trot alongside her owner with occasional stops to sniff interesting spots. But tonight was different. "Come on, Bum. Time to head home," Tay said, gently tugging the leash as the sky darkened. Dinner would be ready soon, and his parents didn't like him wandering the neighborhood after sunset. But Bum had other ideas. The dog stood rigid, nose pointed toward the small forest at the edge of the park. Her ears were perked forward, and a low whine escaped her throat. "What is it, girl? Did you see a squirrel?" Tay asked, following her gaze but seeing nothing unusual among the trees. Bum pulled harder, nearly yanking the leash from Tay's hand. Before he could tighten his grip, she gave another powerful tug and broke free, darting toward the forest with unexpected speed. "Bum, come back," Tay called. But the dog didn't even glance back. With a frustrated sigh, he jogged after her, phone flashlight activated to light the growing darkness. The forest wasn't large, just a small wooded area the town had preserved when building the surrounding neighborhoods. But the evening shadows made it seem mysterious and much bigger than it was during daylight hours. Branches caught at Tay's jacket as he followed the sound of rustling leaves and snapping twigs that marked Bum's path. "Bum, where are you, girl? Bum." His voice echoed, slightly between the trees. Mom would be so upset if he came home without her. The dog had been his responsibility since his 10th birthday 3 years ago, a gift he had promised to care for properly. A strange glow caught his eye. Not the harsh white of a flashlight or the yellow of a camp lantern, but a soft blue pulse coming from deeper in the trees. Tay slowed his pace, suddenly uneasy. What if someone was doing something they shouldn't be out here? Maybe teenagers with weird lights or equipment they weren't supposed to have. He almost turned back, thinking he should get his dad to help find Bum, when he heard her familiar bark. Not her warning bark or playful yip, but the soft woof she made when she wanted to show him something. "Bum," he whispered, moving forward more carefully now. The blue glow grew stronger as he pushed aside a curtain of low-hanging branches. What he saw made him freeze in place, mouth dropping open. Bum stood in a small clearing, tail wagging slowly as she gazed at what looked like... Well, Tay wasn't sure what he was seeing. A person or something person-shaped sat huddled against a fallen tree. Their skin gave off a faint blue glow in the darkness, with strange markings that seemed to shimmer when they moved. Definitely not face paint or costume makeup. The figure wore clothing unlike anything Ty had seen before, made of material that seemed to shift between solid and liquid when it caught the light. Most surprising of all was that Bum, who usually barked at strangers until properly introduced, was calmly approaching this strange being with her tail wagging in friendly greeting. The figure pressed back against the tree, clearly afraid. "Go away," a soft voice whispered. A girl's voice, Tay thought, though unlike any accent he'd heard before. "Please go." Bum ignored the request and moved closer, nose twitching as she took in the stranger's scent. Then, to Tay's amazement, the bee dog simply sat down beside the glowing figure and placed her head on what appeared to be the stranger's lap. The blue-skinned figure froze, hands hovering uncertainly in the air, as if afraid to touch the dog. But Bum looked up with those big, trusting eyes she usually reserved for family members, and something in the stranger's posture changed. Slowly, hesitantly, a slender, blue-tinted hand lowered to touch Bum's head. The moment contact was made, the stranger gasped, body going rigid. Tay almost rushed forward, worried his dog had somehow hurt the strange being, but then he noticed something even more unusual. The stranger was crying. Silent tears tracked down her face, and it was definitely a she. Tay could see now. The tears seemed to glow slightly before falling to the forest floor, where they disappeared like tiny melting stars. Bomb didn't move away. Instead, she shuffled closer, pressing her warm body against the crying figure in the same way she did when Tay was upset or sick. The dog looked back at her owner with an expression that seemed to say, "She needs help." Finding his courage, Tay stepped into the clearing. The stranger's head snapped up, eyes wide with fear, eyes that were entirely too large for a human face and colored a deep violet. I won't hurt you," Tay said, keeping his voice low and calm the way he did when approaching nervous animals. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" The blue-skinned girl didn't answer but clutched at something hanging around her neck, some kind of pendant that glowed brighter when she touched it. Her other hand remained buried in Bomb's fur, as if drawing strength from the contact. "My name is Tay," he said, pointing to himself before slowly kneeling a few feet away. "That's Bomb. She's my dog." He pointed to Bomb, who wagged her tail at the sound of her name but made no move to leave the stranger's side. Up close, Tay could see that one of the girl's legs was injured, a darker blue color spreading below a tear in her strange clothing. Nearby, partially hidden by leaves and branches, something metallic glinted, fragments of what looked like technology more advanced than anything he'd ever seen, even in movies. The realization hit him like a physical blow. This wasn't someone in costume. This wasn't a trick or prank. You're not from around here, are you?" he whispered, heart pounding in his chest. "Not from Earth?" The blue-skinned girl looked down at Bomb, then back to Tay. Something in her expression shifted from fear to cautious curiosity. After a long moment, she shook her head once. And through it all, Bomb remained by her side, offering silent comfort to a being from beyond the stars, building an unlikely bridge between two worlds with nothing more than a wagging tail and gentle presence. When Princess Hana's hand first touched Bomb's fur, she wasn't prepared for what happened. Back on her world, her people communicated not just through words but through a special kind of touch that let them share feelings and simple thoughts. It wasn't mind-reading exactly, more like feeling what others felt, seeing flashes of their memories, understanding without words. But she had never connected with a non-Star Kingdom being before. The royal scientists had always said it wouldn't work with other species. They were wrong. The moment her fingers sank into the dog's soft fur, a flood of pure, uncomplicated emotions washed over her. Warmth, curiosity, concern, protectiveness. There was none of the fear or disgust she had expected from an Earth creature encountering something so different from itself. Hana gasped as images flickered through her mind. Bomb, as a small puppy, being cradled by a younger version of the boy, who now stood before her. Bomb running through tall grass, joy radiating from every leap. Bomb curled up at the foot of a bed, keeping watch through the night when the boy had been sick with fever. Most powerful of all was the simple, unwavering love the dog felt for her human family, and the immediate acceptance she offered to Hana, despite her alienness. In Bomb's simple understanding, Hana wasn't a threat or a monster. She was just someone who needed help. Tears welled up in Hana's eyes and spilled down her cheeks, glowing faintly with the bioluminescent properties all her people's tears contained. On her world, crying was considered shameful for royalty, a sign of weakness unbecoming of a princess. She had been taught from childhood to control her emotions, to present only calm dignity to others. But here, hidden in an earth forest, with only a dog and a confused human boy as witnesses, Hana let the tears fall freely. "She likes you," the boy, Tay he had called himself, said softly, still keeping his distance. "Bomb's a good judge of character. She doesn't usually warm up to strangers so quickly." Hana didn't know how to respond. Her studies of Earth languages had been theoretical, focused on analyzing broadcast signals and written materials. She understood most of his words, but forming a response in his language felt impossible. Instead, she kept her hand on Bomb, drawing comfort from the connection. Through it, she could sense the dog's complete lack of judgment. To Bomb, differences in appearance meant nothing. She assessed others by their actions and energy. "Are you hurt?" Tay asked, gesturing to her injured leg. "I can help, or I can get someone who can help." The mention of someone made Hana tense, and Bomb immediately sensed her fear. The dog pressed closer, and through their connection, Hana felt a wave of reassurance. Images of Tai helping an injured bird flashed through her mind, Bomb's memory of her human showing kindness to another creature in need. "No, others," Hana managed to say, the Earth words feeling strange on her tongue. "Please." Tay's eyes widened at her words. "You can speak our language?" "Little," she replied, the connection with Bomb somehow making it easier to find the right sounds. "Study. From far." Bomb shifted positions, settling her head more firmly in Hana's lap. Through their connection, Hana sensed the dog was deliberately strengthening their bond, somehow understanding it was helping them communicate. "You're from..." Tay pointed upward toward the night sky. "Out there?" Hana nodded slowly. "Star Kingdom." She touched the royal pendant at her neck, which glowed in response. "Princess Hana." "A princess?" Tay looked even more amazed. "Like, for real? With a crown and throne and everything?" Despite her situation, Hana found herself smiling at his reaction. Through Bomb, she could sense he wasn't afraid, just surprised and curious. His wonder felt genuine, not threatening. "Ship broken," she continued, pointing toward the scattered debris she'd tried to hide. "Calling home. Not working." She touched her wrist device, which still displayed only fragmented symbols. "Need help." Tay seemed to consider this for a moment. Then he slowly sat down on the forest floor, crossing his legs. Bomb wagged her tail at this development, and through their connection, Hana felt the dog's approval. "I'll help you," Tay said simply. "What do you need?" The direct offer, with no demands or conditions, brought fresh tears to Hana's eyes. On her world, everything came with protocol and expectation, especially for royalty. Nothing was ever simple. But this human boy, faced with something beyond his understanding, offered help without hesitation. Through her connection with Bomb, Hana sensed this was simply who Tai was, someone who helped when help was needed. The dog's memories showed countless small kindnesses, sharing lunch with kids who forgot theirs, stopping to help an elderly neighbor with groceries, spending hours looking for Bomb when she'd once gotten lost. "Fix this," Hana said, holding up her damaged emergency beacon. "Call home." Tay leaned forward, examining the device with careful eyes. "I don't know if I can fix that. It looks really advanced, but..." His face brightened. "My science project. I've been working on building a signal amplifier for the science fair. Maybe we could use parts from it to boost whatever signal that thing puts out." As he spoke, Hana kept her hand buried in Bomb's fur, using the connection to help understand his faster speech. The dog's calm presence served as an emotional translator, helping her sort through her own fear and Tay's excitement to find understanding. "But we can't stay here," Tay continued, looking around the darkening forest. "My parents will be worried, and it's getting cold. Plus, I need my tools." He hesitated, then added, "Do you think you can walk? My house isn't far, and we have a garage where you could hide." The thought of entering a human dwelling terrified Hana, but Bomb nuzzled her hand, sending waves of reassurance. Through their connection, she saw images of Tay's garage, a cluttered but private space where his parents rarely entered. "I'll protect you," Tay promised, as if sensing her fear. "Nobody will see you. We can sneak in through the side door." Hana looked down at Bomb, whose gentle brown eyes seemed to hold wisdom beyond what one would expect from an earth animal. The dog had become her unexpected translator, her bridge to understanding this world. "Okay," she finally said, allowing herself to trust. Together. As Tay carefully helped her to her feet, Bomb stayed pressed against her side, maintaining their connection. Through it, Hana felt something she hadn't expected to find so far from home. a sense of safety in the presence of these two Earth beings who saw her differences and offered help instead of harm. For the first time since her crash, Princess Hana of the Star Kingdom felt hope. Getting Princess Hana to Tay's house proved trickier than expected. Her injured leg couldn't bear much weight, and the strange material of her clothing seemed to shimmer under streetlights, drawing attention they couldn't afford. Tay solved the first problem by letting her lean heavily on his shoulder. Second, he gave her his jacket, a plain blue hoodie that was too big for him anyway since it had been handed down from his older cousin. "Pull the hood up," he whispered as they approached the edge of the forest, "and try to walk normally. If anyone sees us, I'll just say you're my friend from Science Club." Bomb stayed close to Hana's other side, occasionally pressing against her leg as if offering support, both physical and emotional. Through their continued connection, Hana could sense the dog's protective instincts working overtime, her senses alert for any approaching strangers. Thankfully, the evening had grown late enough that the suburban streets were nearly empty. They made their way slowly along the sidewalk, sticking to shadows where possible. Twice they had to duck behind parked cars when neighbors walked by with their own dogs, Bomb obediently staying silent despite the presence of other canines. "Almost there," Tay whispered after they'd walked for about 10 minutes. "The house with the blue door. We'll go around back to the garage." Hana nodded, conserving her energy. The pain in her leg had grown worse with walking, and the unfamiliar gravity of Earth made her feel heavier than she was used to. Through her connection with Bomb, she sensed the dog's concern about her growing discomfort. As they reached Tay's backyard, a light suddenly flicked on inside the house. Hana froze, but Tay gently urged her forward. "It's okay. That's just Mom in the kitchen. The garage is separate, see?" He pointed to a detached structure at the far end of the yard. "Dad converted half of it into his home office, but he's away on a business trip. The other half is where I work on my projects." They made it to the side door of the garage, and Tay quickly punched a code into a keypad. The lock clicked open. "Tay, is that you out there?" A woman's voice called from the house. "Yeah, Mom. Just putting Bomb in the garage for a bit." She rolled in something smelly at the park. "Gonna clean her." "Up! Dinner's in 10 minutes. Okay." Tay ushered Hana inside and quickly closed the door behind them. He fumbled for a light switch, and soft lighting illuminated what looked to Hana like a treasure trove of Earth technology, much of it disassembled. Half of the space held a desk with a computer and neatly organized shelves, presumably his father's office. The other half was a chaotic workbench covered in tools, wires, circuit boards, and half-completed projects. "Sorry about the mess," Tay said, clearing some boxes from an old couch pushed against the wall. "You can rest here." Hana sank gratefully onto the cushions, her leg throbbing. Bomb immediately jumped up beside her, maintaining their physical connection. Through it, Hana could feel the dog's relief at having successfully completed their journey. "The science project I mentioned is over here," Tay said, gesturing to a contraption on his workbench. "It's supposed to be a long-range communication device that can work without cell towers or internet, for emergency situations. My uncle works in search and rescue, and he was telling me how they sometimes can't get signals in remote areas." Hana studied the device with interest. The technology was primitive compared to her own worlds, but she could see the basic principles were sound. Through her connection with Bomb, she found it easier to translate her technical knowledge into Earth terms. "May help," she said, pointing to her damaged beacon. "Together work." "That's what I was thinking," Tay agreed. He picked up the beacon carefully, examining its alien components with wide eyes. "This is amazing technology. How does it work?" Hana hesitated, aware of the strict non-interference protocols that governed contact with developing worlds. But her situation was desperate, and Tay had already seen too much anyway. She pointed to a crystal-like component at the center of the device. "Quantum entangle. Connect to home. No distance problem." "Quantum entanglement?" Tay's eyes grew even wider. "We're only just figuring that out here. Our scientists can maintain entangled particles for a few minutes at most." Through Bomb, Hana sensed his genuine excitement and curiosity. No greed or dangerous intent, just pure scientific wonder. It made her smile despite her predicament. How boost signal? She asked, gently steering him back to the practical problem. Right. Sorry, Tay said, snapping out of his amazement. I think we can use my amplifier circuit to strengthen whatever signal your device produces. The problem is connecting them without damaging either one. He began gathering tools and components, explaining his thought process as he worked. Hana watched carefully, occasionally making suggestions through her limited vocabulary. When words failed, she would touch Bomb and send images through their connection. The dog would then nudge Tay's hand or bark softly to draw his attention to particular components. It was a strange form of three-way communication, but somehow it worked. Tay seemed to instinctively understand when Bomb was relaying Hana's intentions, responding to the dog's signals with remarkable sensitivity. I have to go in for dinner soon, Tay said after about 20 minutes of work, but I'll bring you some food afterward. Is there anything specific you can or can't eat from Earth? Hana's studies had covered basic biological compatibility. Fruit? Safe. No meat. Vegetarian. Got it. Tay nodded. I'll sneak some fruit and maybe some bread and peanut butter if that sounds okay. At that moment, Tay's phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it and grimaced. Mom's getting impatient about dinner. I'd better go in. He hesitated. Will you be okay here with Bomb for a little while? Hana nodded, her hand still resting on the dog's back. Through their connection, she sensed Bomb had no intention of leaving her side. The dog had somehow appointed herself guardian and interpreter, a role she took very seriously. Lock door, Hana reminded him. Safe secret. I will. I promise. Tay headed for the door, then paused. You know, it's funny. I always hoped I'd meet someone from another world someday. I just never thought it would happen in my own backyard. He smiled. And I definitely never thought my dog would be the one to make first contact. After Tay left, carefully locking the door behind him, Hana sank back against the couch cushions. Exhaustion washed over her, but for the first time since her crash, she felt a glimmer of hope. Bomb settled her head on Hana's lap, brown eyes gazing up with what could only be described as understanding. Through their connection, Hana felt the dog's simple but profound message. You are not alone. Thank you, Hana whispered, stroking the soft fur between Bomb's ears. Good friend. And in the quiet of an Earth garage, a princess from the stars and a dog from a small suburban town continued their silent conversation, building a bridge between worlds that neither had ever imagined possible. 3 days had passed since Princess Hana crashed on Earth. 3 days of hiding in Ty's garage, working together on the emergency beacon, and forming bonds that defied the vast differences between their worlds. With each passing hour, the connection between the alien princess and her unlikely Earth friends grew stronger, especially her silent understanding with Bomb. The beacon was finally ready. Tay had missed school for a stomach bug his mother had reluctantly believed, allowing him to spend most of those days in the garage. Together they had merged Earth technology with Star Kingdom components in ways neither civilization had tried before. It's going to work, Tay said with quiet confidence as he made the final connections. His fingers, which had grown remarkably steady when working with the delicate alien technology, attached the last wire. The signal should reach your people now. Hana nodded, her command of English improving daily through her practice with Tay and her continued connection with Bomb. Yes. Will work. The dog lay pressed against her side on the couch, a constant presence throughout their efforts. Through their touch bond, Hana had shared glimpses of her world with both Bomb and Ty, the floating cities, the crystal forests, the carefully structured society where her royal family maintained peace across 12 planets. In return, through Bomb's memories and Tay's stories, she had experienced Earth from a perspective no official survey mission could have provided. Birthday parties and school days, summer storms and winter snowball fights, the complicated but loving relationships between humans and their animal companions. We should activate it tonight, Tay said, glancing at the garage window where evening shadows were growing long. Mom and Dad will be watching their show after dinner, so they won't notice anything. Hana's hand instinctively went to Bomb's fur, drawing comfort from the connection that had become as natural as breathing. The dog looked up at her with those soulful brown eyes, and through their bond, Hana felt a wave of conflicting emotions. Happiness that Hana would go home safely, but sadness at the thought of her leaving. The realization hit Hana suddenly. She would miss them. This wasn't supposed to happen on observation missions. The royal protocols were clear. Maintain distance, gather information, avoid emotional entanglements with developing species. Yet here she was, dreading the moment she would have to say goodbye to a human boy and his dog who had shown her more kindness than she had sometimes received in her own royal court. What will happen when your people come? Tay asked, setting the completed beacon carefully on the workbench. Will there be a big spaceship, lights in the sky, men in black suits coming to erase my memory? He grinned at the last part, referencing one of the Earth movies he'd shown her on his tablet during their work breaks. Small ship, Hana explained. Quiet rescue, no memory erase. She hesitated. But must promise. Keep secret. Not tell others. Tay nodded solemnly. I promise. Nobody would believe me anyway. He paused. Will you get in trouble? For crashing? For meeting us? Hana considered this. Maybe. Rules say no contact. She stroked Bomb's ear. But accident, not planned. Through their connection, she felt Bomb's protective instinct flare. The dog didn't fully understand the concept of Hana getting in trouble, but she grasped that someone might blame or punish her new friend. A low growl rumbled in Bomb's chest. It's okay, Hana soothed, both with words and through their touch bond. My father, King, is fair. We'll understand. The truth was more complicated. Her father was indeed fair, but the Royal Council was strict about contact protocols. There would be consequences, perhaps the end of her exploration privileges, maybe even confinement to the palace grounds, but she wouldn't burden Tay with those worries. As night fell completely, they moved outside to the far corner of the backyard hidden behind a tall hedge. The repaired beacon sat on the ground between them, its crystal core glowing with renewed energy. Ready? Tay asked. Hana took a deep breath and nodded. She pressed her palm against the device's activation surface, and it responded to her royal biometric signature. Soft blue light pulsed outward in expanding rings, completely silent, but visible in the darkness. Signal sent, she confirmed. Now wait. They sat in the grass, Bomb between them, looking up at the star-filled sky. The waiting should have been tense, but instead, a peaceful calm settled over them. Hana found herself memorizing everything. The chirp of earth insects, the distant sound of cars, the feel of cool grass under her hands, the weight of Bomb's head on her lap. Will you remember us? Tay asked suddenly, his voice small in the darkness. When you're back in your floating cities and being a princess again? The question caused an unexpected pain in Hana's chest. Through her connection with Bomb, she felt the dog's emotional response mirror her own, a sharp ache at the thought of forgetting each other. Always remember, she promised, the Earth words coming easily now. First Earth friends. Saved me. Bomb whined softly and pressed closer. Through their bond, Hana felt the dog's pure, uncomplicated love, so different from the formal respect she received as royalty. Bomb loved her not for her title or position, but simply for being Hana. A faint humming sound above made them all look up. A small dark shape moved against the stars, descending slowly toward them, barely visible except for tiny lights along its edge. They came, Tay whispered, equal parts awe and sadness in his voice. The rescue ship hovered silently about 20 feet above them, then extended a column of soft light to the ground, a gravity beam that would carry Hana home. The moment had come, yet Hana found herself unable to move. Tears filled her eyes, glowing with that distinctive stardust quality that had fascinated Tay when he first saw them. Bomb whimpered, sensing her distress. The dog stood and pressed her whole body against Hana, sending waves of comfort through their connection. "I don't want to go," Hana admitted in a whisper, surprising herself with the truth of it. 3 days here, more real than years at Palace. Tay's own eyes glistened with tears. "But you have to, right? You're a princess. Your people need you." His simple understanding of duty resonated deeply. Yes, she was a princess. She had responsibilities, a role to fulfill, a future mapped out since birth. But these 3 days had changed something fundamental within her. With sudden decision, Hana removed the royal pendant from around her neck, the crystal emblem that marked her as third daughter to the Star Kingdom's throne. It glowed with soft, inner light, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. "For Bomb," she said, placing it around the dog's neck where it nestled against her collar. "Special gift. Holds memories, feelings, connection." The pendant, infused with Star Kingdom technology beyond Earth's understanding, was designed to capture and preserve emotional imprints, traditionally used to record royal ceremonies and diplomatic encounters. But Hana had secretly used it these past days to store every moment with Tay and Bomb. As soon as it touched Bomb's fur, the crystal flared brightly, recognizing the connection already established between them. Through their bond, Hana felt Bomb's surprise and joy as the pendant linked with her in ways the dog couldn't understand, but instinctively welcomed. "It will protect her," Hana explained to Tay. "And, sometimes, when stars right, may let us feel each other, across space." "Like a cosmic friendship bracelet," Tay said, managing a smile despite his tears. The ship hummed more insistently above them. Her people were waiting. Hana knelt and wrapped her arms around Bomb, burying her face in the soft fur one last time. Through their connection, she sent every feeling she couldn't put into Earth words: gratitude, affection, the promise to remember. The dog responded with equal emotional intensity, loyalty and love flowing freely between them. Then she stood and hugged Tay, this brave Earth boy who had broken every rule of his own society's science fiction movies by helping an alien rather than fearing her. "We'll come back," she promised, "someday. As friend, not observer." "I'll look for you in the stars," Tay replied. With a final glance at them both, Princess Hana stepped into the light beam. As it lifted her toward the waiting ship, she kept her eyes fixed on the small figures below. A boy and his dog, looking up at the night sky, the crystal pendant around Bomb's neck glowing like a fallen star. Back on her world, the royal court would soon discover that their princess had returned changed in ways they couldn't understand. They would see only that she had somehow become more compassionate, more willing to listen, more interested in connecting with others beyond formal protocol. They wouldn't know that on a small planet called Earth, a dog named Bomb sometimes sat in a backyard at night, her pendant glowing mysteriously as she gazed up at the stars. They wouldn't know that when Princess Hana later advocated for reforms in how the Star Kingdom approached developing worlds, she was thinking of a garage workshop and a simple act of kindness when she needed it most. And years later, when Earth finally made official contact with the Star Kingdom, they wouldn't understand why the now Queen Hana insisted that a certain dog be present at the historic meeting, or why she wept openly when a gray-muzzled Bomb, wearing a crystal that had never dimmed, recognized her instantly across the crowded diplomatic hall and broke protocol completely by rushing to her side.